growing, free from fear and violence, free to grow as individuals without prejudice, free to grow in an age of hope and potential. That kind of future can be created by our choice. We can wrap ourselves in a blanket of fear, or we can embrace our inherent goodness and find purpose in who we are. Can we make a difference? We have the strength, we have the talent, we have the wealth. Can we find the courage? Looking on the face of a child, the innocence, the hope, the capacity for love. We know in our hearts there is only one answer. Yes, we can.
What I admire him for, when we were out walks or we had to go any place, he helped me a lot, you know, with the other kids. Real, proper wee boy, but still very lovable, very, very caring.
I first met Paddy on the Surrey-Canoeist course to join the Special Boat Service in 1963. On completion of the course itself, some passed and some failed. He was the top of probably one of the hardest courses military services. So there again, it just goes to show the calibre of the man.
Paddy joined us on the Silver Harvester for, I think it was 3 days. I think we were all very impressed with the way he worked with the rest of the crew. It was March, it was cold, and he was on deck virtually all the time, as far as I recall.
He, to me, is still like a son, really. I reared him sort of like a son, but he was sort of special because he was the eldest, and he was very, very helpful and very, very good. A good boy.
I found that Paddy was the type of man that he wouldn't expect anyone to do anything that he couldn't do himself. And as I say, if it was a nasty job, he'd volunteer to do it anyway.
He was prepared to do everything, and he did everything. He was down in the fish room, he gutted the fish, cleaned the decks, he made the tea. He didn't rest.
It never dawned on me that he would have been a politician, but he showed leadership even then.
Certainly has these qualities of leadership, because the ability to work within the team is as essential as being able to head a team. He showed this very well by fitting in very easily with the team on board into what is potentially a very lethal environment.
Jungle warfare is a very nerve-wracking experience. It's all quietness and silence, and it does play on nerves. The man was a natural soldier. There's no gung-ho or anything like this. Although we carried on and done the task we were given, there's no way he would put men's lives at risk.
I think getting under the army, it either makes you or breaks you. Well, it didn't break him. But I think if he hadn't been brave then, he wouldn't have got through it. What does it be true to oneself? Well, that applies to him, really.
Another thing that struck me was that after 3 days on a trawler, you would expect the mask to slip a little bit. But it didn't. He was the same man after 3 days as the man who came on board in Padstow Bay.
Well, he listened to other people's points of views, but he treats everybody equal. And that's the way it should be. Do you know many politicians would do anything like that? I don't.
I think he's a natural, actually. Not only that, he's a man of the people. He's got plenty of common sense, which is lacking in a lot of politicians. People get stuck in Parliament and they tend to lose contact with the normal person. I think Paddy's the type of man who would still not forget that once upon a time he was down there, he was one of the men, and he's worked with the men.
And I went up to meet him, and the car came along, and he got out. And to me, that was that same wee boy with the hair the colour of ripe corn, you know. And he hugged me, and I hugged him, and we cried, really, you know. It was lovely. You know, he's never forgot about me. It's not because I know him and love him, but if he couldn't keep a promise, I don't think he would make it.
I've been very fortunate. I've got great friends. I've got a superb family, and I've had some pretty wide experiences, actually rather more outside politics than inside. I was even unemployed for a while. Our first grandchild will be born any day now, and that's made me think even harder about what I want for the future for all our children. Good health, that's vital, and so is a decent environment, but above all, the best education in the world. Now that's the key. Changing Britain is a massive task, but this is the best country in the world. I care very much about what needs to be done to make a better life for all our children, and I am very determined to do something about it, determined to make that difference.
Yeah, I'm proud of him, really. Really proud of him.
If you'd said to me at sort of 18, 19, you're going to be a politician, I would have said, forget it. Anything else, anything but being a politician.
Why? On what grounds? Why?
Because I thought politicians were complete pains in the backside.
You okay?
And there is a part of you that constantly wonders whether it is worth staying in politics because of all the rubbish that you have to do. I mean, you just have to do it. You've just got to keep a grip of yourself and hope that your humanity sees you through and in the end, understand why you want to be in it. What I keep saying to people is get behind the image. It's quite difficult to bring people to actually see the type of person you are. My ambition when I was a child was to play football for Newcastle United. That was my greatest ambition. I kept trying to talk my dad into using whatever meagre influence he had with Newcastle United to get me a trial. He never did. Because my dad was very active, I mean, he was active in Tory politics, actually, locally. In fact, they had him lined up to fight a seat and become a member of Parliament, but then he became very ill, so gave up everything. But we discussed it, and then when I started really being Labour, there was a slight problem for a time, but he never really objected to it. And of course, he's come over to the Labour Party now, so it's all fine. I think my generation is trying to get to a different type of politics, which is rooted in strong values and convictions, but it's not quite left and right in the way that it's been before. I just think that for a whole generation of people, they thought that if they arrived and did well, then you became a Tory. You know, it's like people used to say, well, if you bought your house, if you owned your own home, you were a Tory, which is crazy stuff. I've always understood, because of Dad, why some people who'd done very well, who'd come up in life and made it on their own, felt the Tory party was the party that was for them because it was the party of ambition and aspiration.
Right.
And that the Labour Party somehow wasn't. And I think, to an extent, I mean, that's what the Labour Party became. It became too stuck in the past, too rooted in saying, well, that's where you are, that's where you stay. Whereas I think today the position's changed around. And what I've always wanted with today's Labour Party is to be the party of aspiration, but say, you know, you can have a society where there's ambition without a lack of compassion. And
Yeah, I was going to say, so why aren't you a Tory?
because I think that in the end, you actually fulfill your I think you fulfill your ambitions better in a society where people have some sense of duty towards other people. Homework? We have a lot of that under Labour. You wait till David Blanket gets hold of you. He'll be doing a lot of homework. The kids, they keep you grounded because you're seeing all through them and through their friends, you know, what's actually happening. I was thinking I wanted you to burst into song. And all the time you just go back to understanding why you're there, why you want to be in it. When he's on the stage, he's got... There's a sense in which I just feel people have got to understand things can change. I mean, it's just so daft to think they couldn't be better. I mean, they could be better. You could, if you decided on it, even if you just decided, right, the education system, let's say education and welfare were going to be the only things you're worried about, and everything else stayed the same even.
Ask me my 3 main priorities for government, and I tell you, education, education, and education.
Well, the job of being a politician is to change the country in the way that you think is right for the country. I mean, there's no point in being in it unless you want to change things. If all you want to do is do the job, you want to sit in the office behind the desk, sign the papers, there's not much point in doing it. But it's like anything, you know, it's like what we did with the Labour Party. We had a clear series of objectives to modernise the Labour Party, bring it up to date, and we've got to do the same with the country. And it can be done. So when I say education, 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 what that means is not just all the specifics of policy. It means I am going to put every single bit of drive and energy that I've got into changing the education system of this country. For me, education, it's almost like trade union reform was for Margaret Thatcher. For me, education is the big passion. It's the thing that, you know, should drive everything that we're doing, which is one of the reasons why it's so crazy that today we spend more on unemployment than we do on education. If a family's got people in the home and no one's working, how do the kids grow up with any sense of the work ethic, any sense of turning up to work on time, earning a wage? You know, they start living in a different culture, in a different society. And when that actually happens, then all the other problems come with it. All the crime and the drugs and the benefits bills. And when I talk about getting young people off benefit and into work, it's not something, I'm not saying they're being uncaring. On the contrary, country, the only proper, true, compassionate way to care is to say we're going to do something about that.
As a first step, we will implement a program to take 250,000 young people off benefit and into work, funded by a one-off windfall levy on the excess profits of the privatised monopoly utilities.
You say there's a great new Labour Party, it's going to change the world, but, you know, they're just cynical. People are cynical about politics and politicians because they've had a government for, at least for the past few years, that has kept promising things, never delivered them, that has havened on one thing and another thing. And people have almost got to the point where they say, well, what's the use? You're all the same. You know, nothing's ever going to make any difference. And of course, the Tories, in a sense, delighted that, because then people say, well, we might as well just stick with what we've got. But you don't have to stick with what you've got. You know, it's absurd to say that we cannot be better than this.
I want you to tell that Stephen Dorrell, from me, that he's got the National Health Service all wrong. I was in a fortnight, they had no pillows, my daughters had to bring my own pillows, my own blankets, they run out of drugs, and they came to take my blood pressure and they haven't got one that was working. The nurses and the doctors are doing a hard job.
There is a battle for resources in the National Health Service, because we're spending so much money now on increased administration. But it's more than just about the resources in the health service.
Oh, he hurt his leg too. Did his sister do it?
But what's really happened is that the Conservatives don't understand why we created the health service. They don't understand it. The health service, to me, is a living, breathing symbol of what a decent, civilized society should mean in practice. Helping people on the basis of their need, not on the basis of their wealth.
And, you know, if they can contribute to dealing with that.
When my father became ill when I was 10, 11, and he had a stroke, and all our lives changed after that, really. Well, for the first 24 hours, we weren't sure whether he was going to live or not, so then that was okay, but then when he came back home, he really couldn't do anything, which was very tough for him because he was a public speaker. He was a good public speaker, he was a barrister, he was a good public speaker. So all those things had to stop. He had to give up his political ambitions, and everything changed. Yeah, well, I mean, the amazing thing is he did actually rebuild his life. And my mother, of course, she nursed him for 3 years and taught him how to speak again. And I think when my mother died when I was 21, you got a sense of urgency into your life as a result of that. I mean, do you know what I mean? You suddenly thought, look, it's actually quite a short time you've got, so you better get on, you better get things done, you better do things.
Nice to see you.
And a thug like me, be an angel too.
We must awaken and ignite in our people the hope that change can bring. Because the last weapon the Tories have, you know, their final weapon is despair and cynicism. It's telling people, well, it doesn't matter who's in power because they're all the same. It'll make no difference. Nothing can ever change. Rubbish. Of course things can change. When they say don't let Labour ruin it, I say to them, Britain can be better than this.
Can only get better. Can only get...
You see, I couldn't imagine myself actually sitting in Downing Street, let's say, doing the job, having those things going on out there, and not be just like some sort of great galvanizing force driving through the change to make things better. I couldn't imagine doing it.
Can it possibly be true that the only democratic party advocating British independence is the UK Independence Party?
That's correct. The other mainstream parties want further integration. We believe, however, that the only way forward for Britain is to withdraw from the European Union. To do that, we need a majority of UKIP members of Parliament with a full range of policies to regenerate Britain. We already have these policies. We are not a one-issue party, but a potential party of government ready and willing to fight for as long as it takes to establish a free British democracy, trading freely with the world at large, founded on the rule of law, with a Parliament fully accountable to the British people and to the British people alone.
Thank you, Dr. Sked. I, for one, was most impressed. No doubt you were as well.
Yes, that's right. The Liberal Party, not the Liberal Democrats. No, we're the Liberal Party, and we'd like to give you an insight into some of our policies. But first, a warning. We're not a party of the centre of British politics, the dead centre, as we will call it. Instead, we're a party of radical ideas. We've a long heritage of ideas. The NHS was one of our ideas 50 years ago. 2 years ago, at the European elections, we put forward our radical ideas on a Commonwealth of Europe rather than the Maastricht Treaty, and this gained us 100,000 votes. And we also have scores of local councillors. But tonight, time is short, so we'll look at our three key areas, our 3 Ps of policy: peace, people, and the planet.
There's been a lot of controversy recently about landmines, and we favour a worldwide ban on them, whether made in China, Russia, or here in Britain. Indeed, Liberals would go further still and end the international arms trade. Surely we can transfer the skill and technology to peaceful, beneficial use. While scrapping Britain's nuclear weapons, we'd still maintain strong, well-equipped forces to defend our interests. We're in favour of mediation and non-military solutions to conflict, based on a revitalised United Nations, and see worldwide democracy as our goal. And just think of the money we'll save. How about investing it in health and education? So, in summary, Liberals would end the arms trade, scrap nuclear weapons, promote mediation, and use the savings on health and education.
But what do Liberal policies mean for people? Let's look at our second P. Well, let's quickly talk about what we don't want. We certainly don't want identity cards, and believe that their introduction would be a dangerous infringement of personal liberty. What we most certainly do want for the people of this country is a Bill of Rights. It's a basic premise of the Liberals that we put freedom first, and as such we feel a Bill of Rights is long overdue in a so-called free country. Now, freedom's fine, but not if you're penniless. So, without any interference from Brussels, Liberals propose a minimum wage of £4.26 per hour to restore some dignity to the lowest paid. And what about the other things that people care about? The health service, for starters. It's clear that the artificial internal market isn't working, no more than the bureaucratic old authorities. What's needed is a radical new approach. Liberals propose that hospitals be controlled by democratically elected representatives of the communities they serve. So, the Liberal Party would oppose identity cards, favour a Bill of Rights, let local people control their health service.
Liberals recognise the need for an efficient transport system, including the reopening of 700 miles of railway to serve an extra 3 million of our population. What's more, Liberals propose free, yes, free local public transport. Now that's radical for you. So we're all for long-term thinking on our stewardship of the planet. Just to recap then, Liberals oppose atomic power and favour alternatives, favour free public transport and a European pollution police force.
Peace, people and the planet, the 3 Ps of Liberal policy. But how does the Liberal Party compare with the other parties, especially the other 3? Well, we'd scrap nuclear weapons and spend the money on schools and hospitals. The others wouldn't. We'd allow local people to control their own health service. The others wouldn't. We'd oppose identity cards as a threat to liberty. The others wouldn't. And what about Europe? A big issue. We favour a Commonwealth. The others broadly agree with Maastricht. I hope we've said enough to prove that we're a party of radical ideas, not the dead centre. But we've a whole range of other ideas, from animal rights to homelessness, and from crime to the very way in which we're governed.
I know why we lost. I think you do too. Our parliamentary party came to be seen as divided, arrogant, selfish, and conceited. Our party as a whole was regarded as out of touch and irrelevant. So we need to change some of our attitudes, change our organization, change our culture. We have to welcome new people and new ideas. I'm going to tell you what I believe in. First of all, I believe in freedom. I learnt all about freedom while growing up in South Yorkshire. I'm not one of those politicians who looks at the United Kingdom through a pair of binoculars from inside the M25. And I believe in enterprise. I learnt about enterprise firsthand from my own family. We've never been rich, but we have been comfortable. And I knew from an early age what that comfort depended on. Diligence, enterprise, initiative, sound business practice, dedication, hard work. The same values that were the foundation of my family's business helped launch millions of similar small businesses under Conservative governments. I believe that one of the first duties of government is to provide a good system of state education. I went to a good school, a comprehensive school. Friends of mine whose parents were desperate to send them to the same school, but who lived in the wrong street on the wrong part of the map, were just unlucky. They were given no choice. So I believe in education, and I believe in self-reliance. We all want to provide for ourselves and our families. That's not greed, it's not selfishness, it's the most ancient human instinct of all. And I believe in obligations to others. And Conservatives know that true compassion is measured not in gestures or slogans, but in hours of personal commitment and voluntary action. Of all the jobs I've had in government, the one that has meant the most to me is serving as the Minister for Disabled People. The courage and self-confidence of the disabled people I met is a lasting inspiration to me. I want everyone to understand this. Compassion is not a bolt-on extra to conservatism. It is at its very core. And I believe in our nation. So I have to tell you, there is a limit to European integration. And I must say, in my opinion, that we are near that limit now. I believe that going into the ERM was a great mistake, and I'm sorry that we did it. We went into something when the time was not right. Let's never let that happen to our country again. And that is why together we say no to abolishing the pound for the foreseeable future. Our beliefs and our values matter now more than ever. So don't tell me this country doesn't need a Conservative party. Don't tell me Conservative values have no relevance for the future. Don't tell me we've got nothing to fight for. The family that works hard, saves hard, tries to be independent of the state and believes in their country, we are on your side.